All right, we are going to end by talking about gut health and going a little bit more in depth into a couple of micronutrients. So, gut health overall, I really like to teach about it before we test about it when I can, because gut testing can be a really pretty lengthy process. We need to make sure we are supporting nutrition and drainage and detox before we jump into a gut protocol. But you can really start doing these lifestyle things that help to support your gut health before that or during a gut protocol. So, one of the first pieces is understanding what are prebiotics and probiotics, and then also just removing things that can inflame the gut or limiting these. Okay. Um, so probiotics and prebiotics, let's start there. Um, prebiotics are the components that actually feed the good bacteria in the gut, whereas probiotics are the bacterial strains that you can add into the gut and that help to produce these anti-inflammatory compounds, right? So think of the prebiotics are like the food for the bacteria. Some of those bacteria are already like in your gut, they've colonized. Others are probiotics that you can add in. And depending on the types of probiotics, some will kind of just pass on through the gut. Others will really colonize and stay in the gut. So that's why we want to make sure we're using good quality probiotic supplements if we are doing that. When I'm looking at prebiotics specifically in food, not all fiber is actually a prebiotic. All fiber is still going to provide you health benefits and count towards your daily fiber goal of 25 to 35 grams. But we want to make sure we're getting some prebiotic foods too, especially if we have a lot of like gut dysbiosis or leaky gut. So when I do a GI map test specifically, I can look at a marker called zonulin that gives me some insight into if a client has a lot of leaky gut or intestinal permeability. So in that case, we definitely want to have more prebiotics in our food and supplements. Okay, so some foods that are high in prebiotics are onions, garlic, chicory root, asparagus, apples, bananas, berries, oats, and psyllium husk. I also recently learned that coffee, good quality coffee, has prebiotic properties, so I don't have that one on there. Some ingredients that I look for in products. So, for example, like your Poppy, some of those new sodas that have a little bit of fiber in them, have inulin. So, inulin, psyllium, chia, flax, hemp, apple fiber, oat hull fiber, osmomalto-oligosaccharides. Those are some ingredients that you might see in prebiotic ingredient foods and products. But yeah, some of my favorite ones I've used are from Pure Encapsulations. I also love Microbiome Labs. Even now and Organic India, those are really great for just psyllium husk powders that are really affordable. And then also some of those like seed products. Reminder with flaxseed, you didn't know this, you want to make sure that you get the ground up version of flaxseed because that will be better absorbed and you'll utilize those ingredients better. Flaxseed is also a phytoestrogen, which I actually didn't include information about phytoestrogens in here, but just know that is a great thing to add in if you have PCOS or dysbiosis is ground flaxseed. Okay, probiotics that I love to add in are sauerkraut, yogurts. Definitely love either a probiotic dairy yogurt or a coconut yogurt. There's some really good ones like Coconut Cult. The Coco June is another brand I love. Kefir, which is like a kind of like a fermented milk, so it's like a thicker milk, but has a lot of probiotics in it. And then fermented vegetables. So some pickles and pickled vegetables and kimchi will have probiotics in them too. And so sometimes this is a really good example of where it's not just the food itself, but the type of food. So, for example, you might feel really cruddy when you drink a glass of full milk. It might cause some indigestion, some bloating. But then if you get a good organic kefir or yogurt, you might feel better. So those probiotics and the fermentation process can help with digestion too, and just comfortability with consuming dairy, but also can be great to add in to repair your gut. Especially if you are someone who drinks alcohol regularly, I definitely think you should be consuming some probiotic foods. If you ever have had antibiotics or you have that recently, you definitely want to add in probiotics after a strain of antibiotics. You can also take them you can take a specific strain called Saccharomyces boulardii during antibiotics. But yeah, Megaspore, that's a good one. There's Microbiome Labs has a couple of good ones. And then Visbiome is a very like higher cost and really high quality probiotic product. But there are some other ones too in my full script that are good, just broad spectrum ones to use. Okay. So, as I mentioned too, with gut health, the third tier is making sure we are consuming a diet low in processed sugars and processed foods that can trigger inflammation. Also, I want to definitely add alcohol to that list. But as you guys hopefully have learned, blood sugar and macros are really important too to avoid hormonal issues. So if you're under eating, right, that can be super harmful to your gut too. So we just want to really make sure we're hitting all of the areas. If you're under eating, your gut is going to not get enough nutrients and energy to really digest food. It's going to be more likely to have leaky gut. So we don't want to under eat for too long. It can actually harm the gut. So it's kind of just this delicate balance. And that's really where testing too can give us more insight over time to see what is helping and what might be not helping. Okay, so I want to end by talking a little bit about vitamin A. Um, Actually, we're going to skip forward a couple of pages here because as we're talking about gut issues and processed foods, I want to talk a little bit about gluten and dairy. Okay, these are something that in the functional and holistic health community kind of get different opinions get thrown around. People will try elimination diets. Some people have really good success with this. Some people will do food sensitivity testing and say they have all these food sensitivities, which in my opinion, really, like I have worked with clinics that have used food sensitivities in a really healthy, great way and gotten people great results because they're also working on gut healing protocols at the same time. So I think that if you're just going to do a food sensitivity test and not actually do anything about your gut health, it's kind of a waste. And we still don't have like the best technology for food sensitivity testing in many cases, a lot of labs. So I don't recommend it as a starting point for most people, but I do see some benefits in trying a gluten and a dairy elimination, especially if you've had um, a lot of symptoms that you're not figuring out how to solve. You maybe haven't done testing yet, or you don't want to invest in testing yet. This is a free intervention that you can do. And in many cases, it also helps because we just start to be more intentional about the types of nutrients we're consuming. So, for example, I have one of my clients, Taylor, who is she has a really great interview on my podcast about her journey. We did actually do some sensitivity testing because I felt it was important for her. We'd worked on some nutrient stuff, some supplements, and found that gluten and dairy were higher for her. She took them out and she just found that it really helped for a while. And then eventually in time, she was able to add back in some good quality dairy. So I also like to test a couple different genes that help me to see if my clients are more at risk of gluten sensitivity. And again, the gut too, if the gut's really leaky, we're probably going to want to be a little more cautious. And so when we take those things out, we can really focus in on other more protein, on like good protein from beef, from eggs, from chicken, from turkey, and getting more vegetables, more fruits, more fiber, more potatoes. Okay, so that can really help build up the good bacteria and get more of those fibers and prebiotics in too. Okay, so I have this flow chart here that you can just kind of go through to think about if you should consider eliminating gluten and dairy. If you do that, I would say minimum 3 months is a good time to work on that. And you really need to be as 100% as you possibly can in that time to see if it's going to work. Okay, let me know what questions you have on that. So vitamin A, this is what I want to end on. And vitamin A doesn't get as much hype in conventional medicine as vitamin D does. Um, and really the reason behind this, I believe, is because vitamins just can't be patented. And doctors, and not necessarily that's because of doctors, but our medical system just like can't make as much money off of things that are not patented. So we just haven't really started using vitamins and minerals in the way we could. They're also just, it's important to think of the timeline kind of nutrition science and medicine. We really didn't start learning about micronutrients in studying them as much until like probably 100 years ago. That's really not very long. So it's just kind of a newer science too. And that's why I really love the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's just really, to me, very grounded in logic and traditional wisdom. Just makes a lot of sense talking about how cultures have eaten over time and traditionally eaten and what the nutrient, the vitamin content in that food is. And they do a good job of also applying that to 2025 and talking about how the different changes that we've had as humans with more stress, with different types of food ingredients added in could possibly influence our nutrient status. So I have some of this information from there as well as from other mentors. I find it pretty confusing, honestly, to study micronutrients on your own in somewhere like PubMed. You can definitely do it. I think Examine is a good database to go to. But anyways, I have found a lot more easily digestible information from places like Weston A. Price. Like I said, Examine is great. Chris Masterjohn is great. Anyway, so this is just a snapshot into vitamins. But vitamin A deficiency can be one of the root causes to PCOS, autoimmunity, and other women's health problems. Testing micronutrients is the best way to assess for deficiencies. However, we know that adding in 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin A can be done safely through food and supplements. Okay, we want to make sure that we are not getting too much above that 5 to 10,000 IUs and work with a practitioner to avoid this toxicity if you are concerned about your ability to determine that and do the math. Okay, so functions of vitamin A. Vitamin A plays an important role in vision, gut health, skin health, reproduction, and immune health. Vitamin A impacts the expression of more than 500 genes in the body. The RDA, so the recommended daily allowance for vitamin A, is 800 to 1,000 IUs, but optimal intake is closer to 5,000 to 10,000 IUs. Okay, so the RDAs that have been set through nutrition research by our government does not mean like you can't go above that, right? If there is any nutrient, which vitamin A is one of them, that has a toxicity that's been determined, I will always let you know. But when we start to look at individuals and we start to look at optimal health, I got this value from Weston A. Price as well as one of my mentors, Donna Sigmund. We know that the RDA does not usually is way, 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 way below the optimal amount that most people need, especially in many cases, people who are sick, people who are stressed, people who have autoimmune conditions usually need more nutrients. Okay. However, nutrients all influence each other. They work together synergistically and antagonistically. So that's where it can get a bit complicated, and we don't always just want to take more and more and more of everything. Okay, so vitamin A and iron, those are quite connected. Vitamin A is essential for optimal iron levels. Oftentimes those with iron deficiency anemia see improvements in their symptoms and labs with additional vitamin A rich foods. I also tend to really oftentimes recommend vitamin A when I see ferritin is low, which I see a lot of in my clients who are going through weight loss because of just less calories and a little bit more stress on the body. But ferritin can sometimes go down. Sometimes it goes up from inflammation, but I just see it really commonly, especially in those who are like losing hair, having hair loss, having low progesterone, having some malnourishment issues. So vitamin A comes from two different sources. One group is called retinoids, which come from the animal sources. So it gets converted into what's called retinol in the body. The other is called carotenoids. So this type of vitamin A comes from plant foods and includes beta carotene. That's a common one that you'll see in nutrition research. So the body converts beta carotene into retinol. However, the main carotenoids are lycopene, lutein, and zeaxanthin, all of which have antioxidant and phytoprotective activity, supporting eyesight, as well as helping protect your eyes from blue light damage, which is really, really interesting. Fun fact, my boyfriend works for a company that actually produces lutein and zeaxanthin called Chemin Industries, and they sell that to a ton of different supplement companies and have a lot of different research on the importance of that for kids and adults for their eye health. So I have a chart here of how to convert retinol into retinol activity requirements. This is where it gets a little bit confusing dietitian math. But if you're looking at like supplements, you will see different ways that it gets represented. And so this is just kind of how you can calculate to the IUs of vitamin A. Okay, so please let me know, message me if you have any questions at all. I do have on my essentials, unfiltered essentials supplement list, I have the cod liver oil that I like. On this list, I also think I have that, and then I have the beef liver that I like. So really, the only way you're going to get way more vitamin A than you need would be if you're doing isolated vitamin A drops or cod liver oil and you're taking like a bunch of that. So most supplement containers will tell you how much to take and you'll be just fine. So, or if you're eating a ton of organ meats, which most people I work with don't even want to eat any. What's important to know though is if you are not consuming any animal forms of retinol or any supplements, you are probably very deficient in vitamin A. Or at least you're tinkering in this place of like, you could become quite deficient. Okay. Maybe you haven't had the symptoms pop up yet, which I actually did not mention. Some of the symptoms of vitamin A deficiency. One of the first ones I think of is bumps on the back of your arms. Okay. If you have really like scaly, dry bumps on the back of your arms. Another one is poor night vision, which sounds really weird, I know, but if you have poor night vision, like you can't see when it's a little bit darker, even poor vision overall could possibly be allergies, PCOS, acne, autoimmune conditions. Those are some of the symptoms of more severe vitamin A deficiency. Dry skin is another one I hear. However, I think that's pretty seasonal for a lot of people who live in the Midwest. Like I just get really dry skin from dry water in my apartment in the wintertime. So, but I do tend to increase my vitamin A a little bit in that time. Okay, so what I was saying about if you're not consuming it from an animal form, you potentially also could have genetic variants. Specifically, European descendant women have been found to have more of these variants where they don't convert the plant form into that animal form, the retinol, which is the one that we really need to use in our body and we need to have very efficiently. So that's also where we don't want to only supplement with beta carotene. And we don't want to only consume like our sweet potatoes and carrots and peppers. That's probably not going to get you enough. So meeting your vitamin A needs, I have a chart here of a lot of the options. And yeah, it really is broken down. I'm very proud of this chart. I've used it in so many of my client calls, and I did a lot of math to create this, but also some Google searching, obviously. So yeah, you can see that like definitely eating eggs, consuming some butter and cheese, like that's a good way to get you close to 1,000 IUs per day, but you're definitely not getting 5,000 IUs a day. Okay, so this is just one of those supplements that I really encourage, and you can test the blood vitamin A level. However, a lot of our vitamin A is also stored in the liver, so it can get a little bit tricky. But I think that this is just something I'll continue to monitor in my health and my clients' health and cycle in and out of their routines, maybe even just keep it in all the time, kind of like vitamin D. That's one of those foundational ones. So yeah. Okay. So finally, I have a link to Fullscript where you can find some of my favorite supplement products. You can also search any products. So you actually, for Fullscript, you want to go on the desktop. I don't love the app version. It doesn't always work well for people, but on the desktop version, you can actually go down to my lists. You can go to, I believe it's, you scroll down and you go to like categories or list. I don't know. Let me know if you can't find that. And you can find my actual products that I've saved in different lists, like one's for gut health, one's for inflammation. But you can also just go in and search products, like search probiotic and see all the different brands that come up, which can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's kind of nice to see what some of the different price points and things are. I do tend to think that Fullscript has really pretty good quality products. If they're in there, they're going to be good. Some are still going to be better than others. And of course, I'm only going to recommend the best, the best, the best. Okay, finally, I just have this chart for you guys, 2 pages of charts to kind of help you assess just like what symptoms should you be monitoring as you make some of these changes. So for example, like start by assessing what are your root causes, right? Would you say yes to any of these things under macronutrient imbalance? Like you struggle with hunger and fullness signaling. You only use low fat options. You have followed a vegan diet for a long time. You skip meals all the time, right? So that's maybe one of your root causes you want to pay more attention to. Micronutrient things, right? That's more of our symptoms of anxiety, menstrual issues, gut issues, or you really just eat a lot of processed foods that you don't get a lot of vitamin A and good protein in. And then the other one would be like inflammation and adrenal stress could be connected to some of those symptoms as well. So if you resonate with any of those, then I want you to also assess how these symptoms could connect to different sex hormones, even if you're not testing them. So these pages are kind of similar, but just a different way to kind of think about your symptoms. But even if you're not testing them, right, I want you to come back in 6 months, let's say, if we're not working together, and redo this assessment and just kind of think about, okay, maybe now I don't have racing thoughts. So I would start like a document. I always tell my clients to start a health and wellness document. Listen to these recordings 3 or 4 times. It really takes us time to actually learn things. When we listen to them, we don't learn everything the first time we hear it. So listen to them a few times, take some notes, jot down what you think your like symptoms might be connected to, what some of your root causes might be, get blood work if you're able to, from me or from another provider, and have a place where you keep track of these things, make some changes, and come back to it. That's how we heal ourselves and we take care of ourselves and we become empowered and not um, giving away our power in our health journey. So I'm so proud of you for reading this, getting started, and I am here to support you, my loves. Thanks. See if we can shut this down. My computer is freezing up. Okay. Thank you, my loves.